So good evening, everyone. We are continuing Gemara Berachot. We are on Daf Bet. We're continuing our discussion of, and hopefully we'll be able to conclude the discussion, at least for the start time of the Shema Yisrael at night. Last week we went through many opinions brought down in the Berachot. We had our Mishnah told us, there was a question of our Mishnah. Does anyone know what was the question of the first Mishnah in Shas? Very good. The night. From when? From what time do we start saying Shema at night? Our Mishnah gave one answer. What did it answer? Very good. Very good. I see you guys are doing review. That's very good. Hey, how are you? So we have this time where the Kohanim are entering, and then the Braita told us Siman Adavar. What is that time? The time that the stars come out. Okay, so tonight we're going to speak a little bit more about the stars at some point. I'll just very briefly say that Halakha says, hopefully we'll see it. Halakha says, when I say stars, we're not talking about the smallest stars. We're not talking about the largest stars. We're talking about average stars and about 3 of them. Okay, you can see it's not such a precise moment. So we have to put times onto it, which is what I showed you last week. We went to Mais Manim and we'll speak about the times. But basically, it's nightfall. When does the night begin? The official night begins from a time called Tzeta Kochavim, which means the stars come out. And I'm telling you, it means around 3 average size stars come out. Okay? That's the time to start reading Shema at nighttime. Good? Good. Then I'm going to share my screen. Oh, we have already a chat comment. We can't see the screen. I didn't share it yet. It's just me. You see me? Hopefully you see me. But I'm going to share my screen now. He doesn't want to see me. Okay. So this is the chart that we did last week. Okay. We did this chart last week. To just do a quick review. Focus on the start column. Our Mishnah says, from when do you start saying Shema at night? I don't know if you could see. You could see or no? Okay. And I'll try to zoom in a little bit. From what time do we start saying Shema at night? From the time that the Kohanim eat their Truma. The Braita says the time a poor person begins to eat. Okay? Then we had a Tosefta, which is another form of Braita, where there was a machloket, 2 opinions. The first opinion, Rabbi Meir said, the time that regular people eat on a Friday night, and the second opinion, Chachamim say the time Kohanim eat Terumah. So we have 3 sources for the start time of Shema. Don't worry about the end time, we're going to get to that later. So now, our Mishnah says Terumah. When you bring the second Braita that says the time of a poor person, our initial reaction is, look, they don't disagree. They're just giving you 2 signs for the same time. One opinion says the Kohen, one opinion says the poor person, but it's the same time. So we wanted to say source number 1 and source number 2 are in agreement. But once we get to source number 3, we see, okay, you can't say that everyone is in agreement because clearly there's a disagreement in that Braita. One opinion, Rabbi Meir says regular people eating on Friday night, and Chachamim say the time of Kohanim. So the first thing we wanted to say is, look, regular people eating, poor people eating, you would assume it's the same thing. So if poor people is the same as regular people, so that means poor people can't be the same as a Kohen. This is the flow of the Gemara. And then we said, no. Kohen is the same as a poor person, but the regular people on a Friday night is a different time. This is where we had left off last week. So based on this, what we have is, we have 3 sources. The first source, the second source, and the third source all say the same time. And in that third source, Rabbi Meir, which is a singular opinion, an individual opinion, argues with the Chachamim and says a different time. But this is the way we're stacking it up. There's really only one time that the Chachamim hold by. Okay? Tonight, we're going to say, hold on a second. At this stage, you're okay with the fact that saying Kohanim and poor people are at the same time. But for Kohanim and poor people to be at the same time, if that's what we're standing at, we're going to say there's going to be a contradiction, and we're going to bring the last source. And the last source is going to bring 5 opinions. Yes?
Well, why can't you say they're all the same?
The reason you can't say that Rabbi Meir and Chachamim are at the same time is because when you have a Braita that says, what is the starting time of Shema? Rabbi Meir says this, Chachamim say that. There has to be a machloket. The fact that there's 2 opinions in a Braita, in a single source, saying 2 different times, they're arguing with each other. So you know that Rabbi Meir is arguing with Chachamim. But if you want to say that Chachamim, who is the majority opinion of that third source, is the same as our Mishnah, which it is, it's also the same as the Braita. So you're saying that poor people eating and Kohanim eating are at the same time. That's not going to hang together once we bring our fourth and final source. So let's go ahead and see it. If we're looking at the Gemara, so I had it. I scrolled. Here we go.
So 2b3.
2b3 in the Gemara, right?
Yeah.
The top. The first break of 2b3 on the top left. Okay. Got your Gatorade. You ready for a workout? Mental workout. Baruch Hashem. So let's go. Ve'ani ve'chohen chad shiurahu. Is the time of an ani and the time of a kohen really the same time? That, remember, again, looking at the screen, that's where we are now, because you have your Mishnah says kohen, your Braita, source number 2, says ani, a poor person, and we want to say it's the same. And we say, hold on, can it really be the same? We say yes, because your third source that includes regular people, the regular people is Rabbi Meir's minority opinion. But throw him out for a second from this comparison, the Chachamim say kohanim. So you have source number 1 saying kohanim, which is Seit HaKochavim, the time of nightfall. Source number 2 says poor people. Source number 3, the Chachamim say Kohanim. It's all the same time. Now the Gemara says, really? Can Kohanim and Aniyim be the same time? That's the question. The Ani v'Kohen chad shiurahu, and Ani and a Kohen, is it really the same time? Ureminhu! But there's a contradiction, right? What does Ureminhu mean? What? No. It is a contradiction, as I said, but it's a very specific type of contradiction. What is it? I think I even started to write this, no? I have a glossary tab here. Oh, I don't think I showed you guys this, though.
Can you share the Google sheet in the chat?
The Google sheet. Oh, this is Excel. So I don't have it, but it's a good idea. I could go ahead and send this in the future. The thing is, I'm going to use it right now to unfold. I'll send it, though. So the question of Uriminu is, I'm going to bring a contradiction from a Tanaitic source, from a Tanaim, to something that I believe is against the Tanaim. So we just learned something. We made a statement about Tanaim. And what did we say? We said, source number 1 is the same as source number 2. The time of Kohanim is the same as the time of Aniyim. But I'm going to bring a contradiction to that assertion from a Tana source, which means I'm about to quote a Braita. When you see Uriminu, you know that the following thing, it's not going to be a logical question. That can't be because otherwise I'm going to have a problem. It's going to bring another source. Now we're going to read that other source, okay? Uriminu, source number 4, this is a Braita. Me matai matchilin likrot Shema be'arvin. What time do you begin reading Shema at night? It's a question we're very intimately involved with for 3 weeks now. So, Misha'a shekidesh hayom be'arvei Shabbatot. The time that Shabbat begins, or on Fridays that Shabbat begins. The day that the Kiddush Hayom, the day becomes holy on Fridays, which means the time of Shabbat, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. According to Rashi, this is the time of Shkiyat HaChama, sunset. I'm going to get through this, and then I'll stop for questions. What is the time of sunset? Remember, we spoke about this. There's a time, looking at the screen, there's a time that the sun sets on the left side, right? Once the sun, the ball of the sun, goes below the horizon, so you're watching that orange ball go down, go down, go down, go down, and then you cannot see the ball anymore. That moment, according to the Geonim, is what we're going to go with. That moment is called Shkiyat HaChama, sunset. That's the moment Shabbat begins. Okay? So the Shabbat begins at that time. But that's not nightfall yet. Because nightfall is Seit HaKochavim, the time that the stars come out. The moment the sun comes down is not the same time as the stars coming out. You need it to get a little bit darker. Okay? And how long and what do you call that time period in between? It's called Ben Hashmashot. Very good, or twilight. Ben Hashmashot. So what we have now is Rabbi Eliezer is actually saying, hey, you could start saying Shema already from sunset. You don't need to wait until nightfall. You can start already from sunset. That's the first opinion. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for everyone to see on the screen, but you can't see the English this way. What if I do side by side? Would that help you guys? Someone last week was telling me I should make it bigger. Okay, so we'll do it this way. Okay, so this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Now over here, Rabbi Yoshua Omer, Misha'asha Kohanim metoharin le'echol b'trumatan. When the time that the Kohanim are pure and are able to eat their truma. This is the same time that we have already been seeing. Now our fourth time. Ilan asked a question last week. Our Mishnah says Misha'asha Kohanim nichnasin. The Kohanim enter the house to eat. Last week we learned the Braita that says Misha'asha Kohanim zakain. They're pure. Now we're saying metoharin. Simple understanding, they're all the same thing. It's just different words to say the same time period. The focus is the fact that Kohanim are not eating their truma. That's the second opinion of Rabbi Yoshua. Opinion number 3, Rabbi Meir Omer. Rabbi Meir says, Misha'asha Kohanim tovlin le'echol b'trumatan. He says something a little bit different. The time that the Kohanim, not that the Kohanim eat their truma, but the time that the Kohanim are tovel. What does tovel mean? Immersing in the mikveh. When do you do that? Daytime. Exactly. So I'm glad you remember this. So I'll say the process again. When a Kohen is impure for 7 days and with a very specific type of tumah, a Kohen wants to eat truma. Who's our Kohen tonight? No Kohen? Oh. Okay, now we have Zoom Kohens. I saw Ronnie before. Oh, and Ben Azizi. All of the Kohanim are home. You guys are all eating. They're getting ready to eat their truma. So there's a mitzvah to eat truma for a Kohen. It's actually a special bracha that they have to say. You know how you say Asher Kedishanu Tasnu An Nitvat Yadayim, and then you say Hamotzi Lachem Min Haaretz. If you're a Kohen, you have an extra bracha. You say Asher Kedishanu B'Kedushato Shel Aharon. Wow, V'Tzivanu Le'echol Truma. They have a special truma that they have a special bracha. It's a mitzvah for them to eat. So what's their process? During the day they go to the mikveh. Then at nighttime, when after nightfall they eat. So Rabbi Meir says, you know what time you can start saying Shema? When they go to the mikveh. What's the problem? Problem is, it's still daytime. So how does he even say that? So right away, our Mishnah says, time out. I know you want to give me a list of opinions, but I can't let that go. Amalo Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm going to interject myself in your Braita and say, V'halo Kohanim mi'ba'od yom hem tovlim. Don't Kohanim go to the mikveh during the day? Okay, so he has his jab, and then we continue with our Mishnah. The Gemara is going to tell us that Rabbi Meir has a response to this. But we're going to continue with the Braita, fourth opinion. Rabbi Chanina Omer, Misha'a she'ani nichnas le'echol pito b'melach. The time that the ani enters to eat his bread, pito b'melach, to eat his bread with salt. Basically saying what he's eating doesn't really matter. It's the fact that he's eating. Why does it say bread with salt? To tell you that ani doesn't really eat much. But the time of the ani, okay? It's the fourth opinion. And fifth opinion, Rabbi Achai is the fifth rabbi. Ve'amila Rabbi Acha. Some people say, no, it's not Rabbi Achai, it's Rabbi Acha. It's a difference of one letter. This one is Aleph Chet Aleph Yud. This is Aleph Chet Aleph. But when we are recording the tradition, we do it to the best that we can. If we're not sure who said the statement, we're not going to say the wrong person. We're going to say it's either this or that. So Rabbi Achai or Rabbi Acha said, Misha'a shirov b'nei adam nichnasim le'aser. The time that majority of people eat. So look at this. We have 5 opinions as when is the start time to read the Shema. So let me go ahead back to my Microsoft, not Google chart. Let me show you this, okay? So now, wow, how did I type it so fast? So here there's 5 opinions. According to this Braita, the 5 opinions of what is the start time of Shema. Rabbi Eliezer says start of Shabbat, which is sunset. Rabbi Yeshua says that Kohanim eat Truma. If I'm following my convention, I should make this proof. Okay, so let's copy this. Oh, I broke something. Okay, so let's make this blue. So you could see that Rabbi Yeshua is consistent with our Mishnah and also consistent with the Chachamim of the previous Braita. Now, Rabbi Meir says the Kohanim go to mikveh, which we said, Rabbi Yehuda already challenged and said, oh, that's daytime. Rabbi Chanina says the poor person begins to eat. Does that sound like anyone? That sounds like source number 2, right? Which, let's go ahead and make it blue, because up until now, our assumption is that an ani and a kohen is the same time. So a poor person and a kohen is the same time. And then Rabbi Achai says the time that regular people eat. These are the 5 opinions of this final Braita. Now, can anyone tell me, based on this, can you come to a conclusion whether an ani and a Kohen, a poor person and a Kohen at the same time or not? You have to assume that a poor person and a Kohen is different time. You said they're old, meaning you're also throwing in a regular person, but sorry? Kohen eating his truma and Ani eating his food, are they the same time or not? So up until now, we were trying to say in our Braita that they're the same time. That's what we did. Remember, we had the time. Source number one, Kohen eating truma. Source number two, Ani eating. We said, is that different times? No, it's the same. Oh, really? It's the same? But you have in your other source that it says regular people eating versus Kohen eating. Isn't regular the same as a poor person? No, regular is a different time. Poor person is the same as Kohen. So now we're going to say poor person is the same as Kohen, but you have this Braita where one opinion says the poor person, one person says the Kohen. They're arguing. So this is what the Gemara is going to tell you, that it cannot be that Kohanim and poor people are at the same time. Let's read it inside, and then I'll come back to highlight.
Right, I feel like poor people and Kohanim eat at different times, and I don't know. I would imagine a poor person would eat a lot earlier than like a Kohen. Like a poor person hasn't eaten all day, and a Kohen, and who knows, maybe had like a fat lunch, and he could afford to eat like at a later time.
Okay, very good. So you're saying so you're saying if I had to assume, I would say a poor person eats earlier than a Kohen because the Kohanim, these guys, I mean, look, you're right. You could speak on behalf of the Kohanim. You guys eat your dinner later. That's what you're saying, okay? But we're trying to use the sources here. And we wanted to say, is it possible that they're the same? Yes, it's possible they're the same. But now, once we learn this Braita, we see it's not the same. V'i amart ani v'chohen chad shirahu. If you want to say that a Kohen at the same time, Rabbi Chanina, Anu Rabbi Yoshua, then the opinion of Rabbi Chanina is the same as the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua. So that's what I'll show you on the thing here. This is Rabbi Yoshua who says Kohanim. Rabbi Chanina says poor people. So it must be that really poor people are at a different time. What's your favorite color? It's okay. Green. Shelby says green. Darker. We'll go with a darker green. And that's the same thing that we'll say here. So now Kohen, you really can't see it so different, but the Kohen and a poor person are different times. And now this is how we're going to stack it up. So now you have 5 different opinions in this Braita, and we've concluded that Kohen is his own time, Ani is his own time, and as Andrew said, also a regular person is his own time, which is all has to be different from sunset. And then we have this Kohanim going to the mikveh, which you know is already during the day, which we'll look into next. Okay? So, Elalav, 1 second, once we finish this, Elalav. Rather, Shema Mina, we learn from here, from this final Braita, Shirah de Ani Lachud, the Shirah de Kohen Lachud, at the time of a Ani is his own time, a poor person, Ani is a poor person. The time of a poor person is his own time, at the time of a Kohen is his own time. Shema Mina, we conclude from here. I had asked this last week, what does Shema Mina mean? There's one thing I want to say here, and then I'll open up for questions. What does Shema Mina mean? We learn from here, we can infer. Who said infer? Yes, exactly. What Shema Mina means is like, I have something, and from that, I'm going to deduce logically something else. If you have one Braita that gives me 5 opinions, and one of the opinions is the time that Kohanim eats, their Truma, and another one is the time that poor people eat, I can deduce from here, those are different times, and that's what the Gemara wants to say. But there's something special about this order, which I want to point out the signpost of the Gemara. Shema Mina means we learn from here. Shirah de Ani Lachud v'Shirah de Kohen Lachud. They have their own times. Shema Mina. We learn from here. What is this double expression? Why does it say Shema Mina, Shema Mina? You have an idea? It's okay, very good. It's almost as though, like you could read it this way. The first time it's like asking, can we deduce from here? Is that a fair deduction to say this is its own time, its own time? Shema Mina, the Gemara says yes. When the Gemara says Shema Mina, something, Shema Mina, it's almost like you could say it as a question. Is it, can I deduce from here the following? The answer is yes. I think it's from the following. Or it's just the Gemara's iterating it, is telling you that yes, it's a conclusive proof. Is that what you want to say? That it's a conclusive, this is a conclusive evidence. So now you're learning something. If it only says it once, then it's possible that the Gemara will subsequently reject it. Okay? These are part of the things of our shiur is to try to bring out the language of the Gemara. If it says Shema Mina, that means I wanted to do something. If it says it twice, that means the Gemara gives its thumbs up. That's a fair deduction. It's a fair inference. But if not, it's possible. Doesn't mean that it'll always be rejected. I'm not saying it'll be rejected. What I'm saying is that the Gemara's flow might reject it. Okay? Okay, very good. Let's pause here for a second, and then we have to deal with the other question, which is Ronnie's question. Yeah, questions?
Literally, why didn't you like that talk about the option?
Okay, very good. So Ilan's saying, hold on a second. I had this I was first entertaining the idea that Kohen and poor person is the same time. Why did you even let me go down that path? Why didn't you just let me from the very beginning go straight to the say, hold on, I have a braita here. And that clearly says the source number 4. Why don't you just jump to that straight? Why do you bother me? Why does our Mishnah just go straight to the 4th braita? Or the Gemara, why does it just go straight to the 4th braita? Okay, so there's something very important about the flow of Gemara. The flow of the Gemara is not always getting to the final answer right away. But it's very important, and this is something very important also for how your brain works. Okay, it's very important for you to go down wrong paths to eliminate so that you know what the right path is. Okay, if you would have just go straight to this point, you wouldn't necessarily appreciate the question of is an ani his own time or is a Kohen his own time? Can you say it's the same? Can you say it's not? Like if I would have just went to the last braita, I would say, yeah, it's all different. Yeah, but you wouldn't have appreciated the question as much. The Gemara also will very often quote discussions as they occurred. This is how the discussions occurred in the Beit Midrash. So think about it this way. Let's say if I had to rank it for you for how popular these discussions were. Why do I say popular? Everyone knows the Mishnah because the Mishnah is recorded. But the Braitot are not recorded. Remember? There are discussions that would occur. So maybe not everyone knew this 5-opinion Braita, but they knew just this one. So the Gemara starts up by saying, hey, I remember this Braita. And someone else comes and says, hey, I actually know this one. And someone from the back corner says, you kids, don't you know this Braita? And like no one ever knew it. So the way, if this is how the discussion occurred, how someone said this, someone said that, is at the same time, then you have someone else come saying this. Very often the Gemara will record the discussion as it occurs. But again, this is something that I've learned that sometimes it's better not to jump straight to the answer right away. Because if you go straight to the answer right away, people don't appreciate the back and forth. And I'll give you a very important idea. Right now, we're going to speak about what the halakha is. If I tell you what the halakha is without going through this whole discussion, we could have just said the time is set to kochavim. You would have moved on. Okay, but now I told you no. The time of it is the time of the Kohanim eat, and that's compared to the time of Ani eat, which is the time is this, which another Braita says is the time of Seder Kochavim. Let me give you a proof because they were working until Seder Kochavim, and then this, and then you have that up. And is it all the same? Okay, at the end I'll tell you the halacha is like our Mishnah that is the time that the Kohanim eat. All of this is building up the idea of like now I know the halacha. So if you're looking in Gemara, if you're looking for a bullet point list of halakha, that's not what you're going to find. You're going to find the discussions, and you're also going to find sometimes where it's what's called a dechuya ba'alma, where the Gemara just pushes things aside, because this is the way to eliminate the wrong answers. It's eliminating the wrong answers, and that's okay. You're not going to go straight to the point. These are different braitot. This is how the discussion occurred. Okay? Yes, one more question?
Since the braitot discussion, the Gemara lists braita.
Yes.
And you're reading it, should you assume that could be like misquoted or not that?
Okay, very good question. I'll take a minute to elaborate on Eli's question because I think there's other things to explain here. So Eli says, okay, hold on a second. A Mishnah is recorded in the Mishnah by Rabbi Nasi. That's codified. It's been reviewed. You know it's correct. It's authentic. If you have a Braita, it wasn't recorded. Is it possible that it was misquoted? Is it possible that I have a wrong opinion in there? Is it possible that maybe I have the wrong name or I have the wrong opinion? The answer is yes, it's possible. Now, you shouldn't go through every single braita and say, oh, this is wrong. But the Gemara very often will say, I forgot the Lashon, where you have to switch the opinions. You have Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda says something like this in the Mishnah, then the Braita, they say the opposite. The Gemara says, yeah, okay, we made a mistake. We got the names wrong. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it says that Braita is according to another opinion, but according to this opinion, meaning it's like very meta, where you have different opinions as to what the opinions even are. So this Braita says this is how the machloket is. right? So I don't think that means that you should start challenging every time you read a Braita that's quoted, but the Gemara will very often challenge the Braita and say there's some details wrong. And we're going to get to something very similar to that in the next couple lines. And we're going to see that right now, which is a nice segue. Okay, good?
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yes, go ahead.
I could see how it's different times. The Braita is referring to different times, but could we suggest possibly, you know how the Mishnah said, why did we bring up the topic of the Kohanim eating the teruma to learn another halakha? Like, could this Braita bring any other halachot?
Okay, yeah. I wanna break it down. So now you're asking a good question. You're saying maybe the reason we have to bring these, this may be addressing Elon's question, is you learn other things coming up from the Braithot. It could be. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Very often you'll have Gemarot that are just quoting the same exact thing, but it's just changing one name, and you go on for 20 lines just because it wants to record it authentically. So you can't say that every time it quotes something, it's so that you want to learn something new out of it. But that's also possible, that it could be that there's other things to learn from this. Okay. I think it was Richard. You're asking what's the difference between the first Braita source and the second Braita source? They're different sources. Like, I'm not sure what your question is. They're different sources. This is one Braita. This is another Braita. Braita is a discussion of Tanaim, and they're different discussions. We're trying to line them up. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with the Gemara. Okay. Now we get into Rani's question, really, sort of. Hey, minayu me'uchar. Okay, so now I want to line these up chronologically, I guess, I want to put them on the schedule. What's the earliest time? What's the latest time? Okay, so there's some machloket, but let's get through this. Let's just go through this. Right now, according to Rashi, the question is focused on the ani and the kohen, the poor person and the kohen. Which one of them is later? The Gemara says, Mistabra, it makes sense, the ani me'uchar, that ani is actually later than a kohen. The amrat, the ani muktam, because if you want to say that a ani is before the time of a kohen, Rabbi Chanina, Hainu Rabbi Eliezer, then you get into the situation where Rabbi Chanina is the same time as Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so I'm going to explain Elalav. So it must be Shema Mina. We learn from here the ani me'uchar, the ani is the latest Shema Mina. Conclusive. So what's going on here? It's saying, I want to compare the time of the Kohen to the time of a poor person. So Rani, who's our Kohen, said, it makes sense that a poor person is earlier because he's hungrier. But he's not eating dinner at daytime. He's going to eat dinner at nighttime. And the Kohen is eating Truma at nightfall. The other marker of when you would start being able to say Shema would be at sunset, right? Because you have the time of sunset and then you have the time of Tzedek Kochavim. If it's earlier than the time of the Kohen, the Gemara assumes, what are you going to pick? 2 minutes before nightfall? Why would you pick that time? It's just very arbitrary. You would pick the other marker. So you don't want to go to the time of a Kohen. So what's the other, like, a good marking point before the time of nightfall? It would be sunset. So you want to pick sunset, but that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. So there's too many opinions before nightfall here. Nightfall, by the way, there's different opinions, but the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Ben Hashmashot is 13 minutes, 13 and a half minutes. Just call it 13 and a half minutes. So like the Kohen is at the end of this 13 and a half minutes. Rabbi Eliezer says at the beginning of the 13 and a half minutes. You want to tell me the time of a poor person is before a Kohen? Like, where are you going to sneak this in? Like, okay, 4 minutes, 5 minutes after this, before this, it doesn't make sense. So just because it would be too stacked, we're going to say it must be the time of a poor person is actually afterwards. Shema Mina. I want to, at this moment, give a plug for Rabbi Eli Stefansky. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. There's a rabbi who has made Gemara, or Daf Yomi, really. So like we're studying these Gemara, we're doing like, I feel it. We're doing the Gemara at a slower pace. But there are some people that they do a page of the Gemara a day. It's called Daf Yomi, a page a day. There's one rabbi, his name is Rabbi Eli Stefansky. He's been putting his videos on YouTube and it's on podcasts, and it's very fun. It's very entertaining. They sing and they do all these things. He has a lot of followers. So he has like different charts that he makes. And I emailed them and they gave me access to the charts for Gemara Berachot. So he made this chart. I want to show you this chart that he made. and talk through it with you. Okay? It's in Hebrew, so bear with me. The first opinion is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, right? That's the time of sunset. That's the time where we say Shabbat starts. This is the first opinion. That's the earliest time you could say Shema at night to sunset. You wouldn't be able to say it before the sun sets. It's still daytime. So that's the first opinion. Okay, we're going to get to that. Rabbi Meir, who says at the time of the Kohanim, go to the mikveh. You know what? You're right. Let's read that part of the Gemara first. Okay? So continuing with the Gemara. Amar Mar. Oh, someone want to tell me what Amar Mar means? Very good. So Amar Mar, more generally, means a restatement of a Tana's statement. I gave you a statement by the Tana, and now I'm revisiting it. If you see Amar Mar, there's two things you know right away. Number one, I'm about to quote a Tana. Sorry, what is a Tana? Time period? From the times of the Mishnah, from the year 0 to 200. So if it says Amar Mar, I know I'm going to quote a Tana, and there's something else that I know. What do I know? Doesn't have to be from a Mishnah. It could be a Tana. Previously stated that this is not new. So if you see Amar Mar and you see something and you have no idea what it is, maybe you need to take a nap, or maybe you need to do a little bit more review, because Amar Mar means I'm restating a statement of a Tana. Okay? It does. You also have to read the next words. Amar Mar. Amar le Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said. Sorry, you had a question? Yes. Right. It's like if you keep going west, eventually you're going to get back to east, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if there's like a limit on how many pages, but it's within the context. I believe it's within the context of the last Mishnah or the last discussion. Okay, that's a good question. If that, Daf Chav, what Daf are you up to when you said?
Going backward, or sometimes it goes forward.
Oh, okay.
I'm asking specifically that it was mentioned prior.
It is, yeah.
Prior to this location, or somewhere else.
No, I believe it's prior to this location in this discussion. It's like in this discussion. Obviously, if you're picking up on Daf Bet Amud Bet and you didn't see Daf Bet Amud Aleph, then you would say, I never saw this. But this is quoting our Mishnah from the first page. I'm pretty sure it's looking backwards and it's saying this is something I had previously quoted. But if you have an example of something that was quoted 30 pages ago, I think that's very interesting and that'll help us to get the rule a little bit better. But I think it's within this with the Gemara's discussion. Okay, so now we're going to go to the question that Elon had of Rabbi Meir. Okay, look back on the screen for a second. Rabbi Meir said in this final Braita, the time that to start saying Shema is the time the Kohanim go to mikveh. And what did I tell you? When do the Kohanim go to mikveh? During the daytime. Okay, when it's still during the daytime. And then Rabbi Yehuda challenged him right away and said, what do you mean? That's daytime. So now we're going to quote that. Okay, Amar Mar. We learned that what Master said in the Braita. Amar le Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda responds to Rabbi Meir. V'halo Kohanim mi'od yomem tovlim. Don't Kohanim go to the mikveh during the day? Everyone understand the question? I'm asking you when you can say Shema at nighttime. Rabbi Meir says when the sun is out. I'm sorry, I don't think you realize my question. My question is, when do I start saying Shema? At nighttime, right? So it has to be at nighttime. It can't be during the day. So he says, the Gemara says, Shapir ka'amar le Rabbi Yehuda le Rabbi Meir. Shapir means good. He did a good job. Rabbi Yehuda gave a good question. He asked a good question on Rabbi Meir. He challenged Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Meir says the time the Kohanim go to the mikveh. Rabbi Yehuda says, but that's daytime. The Gemara says, okay, that was a good response. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir, this is what Rabbi Meir says. Okay, ready? I'm going to twist your brains right now. Get ready for this. It's a very complicated topic, but I'll do my best to explain it. Mi savarat de'ana aben hashmashot didavka amina. Do you think I agree with you about when Ben Hashmashot begins? I don't agree with you about when sunset, when Ben Hashmashot begins. Ana aben hashmashot de Rabbi Yosef amina. I hold like Rabbi Yosef, who there's another Gemara elsewhere who says something else, and I'm going to explain this. The Amar Rabbi Yosef, the Rabbi Yosef said, Ben Hashmashot keheref ayin. Ben Hashmashot is not 13 and a half minutes, as I had explained, according to Rabbi Yehuda. It's like heref ayin. What is heref ayin? The blink of an eye. It's so small. It's so short. Ze nichnas v'ze yotzeh. The beginning of Ben Hashmashot begins and it ends right away. The day ends and the night begins almost at the same time. You can't even, if you looked at the sky and you said it starts now, ends now, you wouldn't even be able to tell. It's so quick. Yeah, there's some twilight between sunset and nightfall, but it's very quick. Okay? So, let me explain what's going on here. I'll do my best. Look at the screen. Can I move this up? Okay. Okay, so do you see how on the bottom here we have sunset and Set Kochavim? Okay, according to Rabbi Yehuda, how long is this time between the time that the sun sets and the time that the stars come out? It's called nightfall. According to Rabbi Yehuda, 13 and a half minutes. Good, you're listening? Now, how I got to that is because the Gemara says, Shloshet Riv'ei Mil, 3/4 of a meal, the amount of time that it takes me to walk a meal. How long does it take you to walk a mile? Average person walks how many miles per hour? That's like 4 miles per hour, 3 miles per hour. Let's go with around. So you're saying 3, you're saying 4. Let's go with somewhere in the middle. So you're saying it would take you 15 minutes to walk a mile. You're saying it would take you 20 minutes to walk a mile. I'm going to go right in the middle and go for a chai, 18. You say 15, you say 20, I'm going to go with 18. Okay? This is not, the Gemara doesn't say, yeah, okay. The Gemara says, according to one opinion, it's 18 minutes. 18 minutes to walk a mile. It's not really a mile, it's called a meal, but it's the same concept. So Rabbi Yehuda says it's 3/4 of that. So what's 3/4 of 18? 13 and a half. Okay? That's how we arrived at 13 and a half. If you want to know more about that, maybe that's time for a bonus shiur at a different time. 13 and a half minutes. When does it start? Sunset. When does it end, this 13 and a half minutes? At Tzedek Kochavim. Okay? So now, what he's saying is like, I don't agree with Rabbi Yehuda, who says Ben Hashmashot is 13 and a half minutes. I hold like Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says Ben Hashmashot is 1 minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. He says it's a blink of an eye. It doesn't have to be literally a blink of an eye, but compared to Rabbi Yehuda, let's call it 1 minute. Let's call it 2 minutes. You can't really tell when it's starting, when it's ending. Now, this is the way they're going to say it. They're saying how his time, Rabbi Yosef's start time of Ben Hashmashot starts when Rabbi Yehuda's Ben Hashmashot ends. So really, according to Rabbi Yosef, you're looking at the screen, the Ben Hashmashot of Rabbi Yosef is what we have here at Tzedek Kochavim. Okay? So now this is amazing. What, according to Rabbi Yosef, the Kohanim would go to the mikveh during Rabbi Yehuda's Ben Hashmashot, which is still daytime for Rabbi Yosef. This is what they would do. It's not that they couldn't go during the day. They could go at 2 p.m. if they wanted to, but they wouldn't. What would Kohanim do, according to Rabbi Yosef, or really according to Rabbi Meir, is they would go moments before they're allowed to eat. This is what they would do. So their moments before Ben Hashmashot is during the Ben Hashmashot of Rabbi Yehuda. So now you see what's happening is Rabbi Yehuda says, when do Kohanim eat their truma? According to Rabbi Yehuda, he's saying it should be after Tzedek Kochavim. Rabbi Yosef is going to say it's a 1 minute later. Okay, so when? When should Kohanim eat? The time that they go to the mikveh, which is a couple minutes before. It sounds like they're coming to a very, very, very close to each other. So moments before Tzedek Kochavim is when he does it. So again, I want to just follow the flow. Rabbi Meir says the time to eat truma, the time to say Shema is the time that Kohanim go to the mikveh. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, that's during the day. He says, no, time out. I know they can go during the day, but they don't. They normally go moments before Tzedek Kochavim. And my opinion is different than yours. My opinion is later. You, Rabbi Yehuda, say Tzedek Kochavim begins at this flat line, this straight angle, the 180-degree angle. I say it starts right over there, moments before Ben Hashmashot. I say that's when it starts. So they go to mikveh right over there. In the middle of your Ben Hashmashot, it's still daytime for Rabbi Yosef, but that's when they go. So it ends up being all the same thing. Okay, so the Gemara here is just trying to like get all of the opinions to fit together. And when I say this now, let me show this to you on the screen. Okay, I'll pause for questions after I show this to you on the screen. So now let's see how he stacked them up. The first opinion is Rabbi Eliezer, who says the time of Shkia. That's the straight line. It's time of sunset. The second one is Rabbi Meir, according to this, where it's still daytime, but it's not really daytime. It's just during Rabbi Yudas ben Hashmashot. So actually, Rabbi Stefansky said this in a very nice way. He said, if Tzedek Kochavim is 3 stars come out, like he put this picture of 3 stars, then Rabbi Meir's time is when 2 stars come out. He's just giving you an idea. It's like moments before. And you remember the Gemara said, who's earlier or later, a poor person, a Kohen? And the Gemara says, Shema Mina, a poor person is later. So the way Rabbi Stefansky put it is, if a Kohen is 3 stars, then a poor person is 4 stars. You're talking about moments away from each other. And then last is Rabbi Meir has another opinion in another Mishnah, which we're going to get into. He says the time that regular people eat on Friday nights. And then Rabbi Acha or Rabbi Achai, he says the last time, that's the time people eat dinner on a regular night, which is later than all of these. Okay, so this is how they stack it up. It gets a little bit crowded here in the middle, but this is how the Gemara wants to line it up. Okay, good. Any questions before we continue? Yes, go ahead.
I don't understand why a poor person starts later.
So it's very interesting. Here, we don't actually ask, like anecdotally, we don't care about who each person is. What we do is we're saying, I have sources. And in my sources, I have different opinions. And if I have different opinions, they can't be the same opinion. Okay? So it's almost as though like these are your variables. You're not really asking, well, why would a poor person do this? You're more asking from the sources. Now, what are you asking from your source? You're saying, I want to know if a Kohen is earlier or later than a poor person. And what you say is, if you're going earlier, your only good marker would be sunset. When I say earlier, I mean, okay, the time of the Kohanim is the time of Ben Hashmashot. Earlier than that, what else do you have? The only other time is the beginning of Ben Hashmashot. And that opinion Rabbi Eliezer already said. So if you want to come and say a poor person, I know it's not the time of the Kohanim. If I want to say earlier, there's no room. The opinions are already taken. So I have to say it's later. How much later? Slightly later. We don't exactly give a source to it, but it's slightly later. So hand, yes?
So like what they were saying is that they have to say that the time for the Anim is later because they don't want to just toss them at some arbitrary times.
Correct. Correct.
So then,
but Rabbi Meir did.
yeah, so then how come Rabbi Meir
Very good.
is saying that, oh, my time is actually some arbitrary time before Shkia?
Okay, very good. So this should be the natural question to my response to Mr. Levian of like, if I'm saying Kohen is at Ben Hashmash, is the end of Ben Hashmashot, is at nightfall. And no one else could be earlier. The only time earlier would be sunset, and that's already taken. And the next line of Gemara says, oh, Rabbi Meir is before. Okay, so obviously you can't do that. But the answer is because Rabbi Meir holds like Rabbi Yosef, who his Ben Hashmashot, you're picking the start time of his Ben Hashmashot. So it's not arbitrary for him. But for the other opinions who don't hold like Rabbi Yosef, but they hold like Rabbi Yehuda, it would be arbitrary. You get it? So this is the question. The question is, coming back to this, okay? So that over here is the Kohen, right? This box over here is the Kohen. Now I get it. I think he was going with like a red, white, and blue and the stars. I think that's what he was doing. It would have been great, like if he gave this shiur on 4th of July or something. Okay, so I think the Kohen is over here, and then we want to say the poor person is here. You say, why does the poor person have to be after? Why not before? We're going to say, because look, before the only time that I would have before is going to be sunset. People don't eat their dinner 2 p.m. They're going to do it at something to do at night. So if you're not going to do it at the time of nightfall, it's going to be the previous marker, which is sunset. It's not going to be anything in between. So I can't have a poor person go before a Kohen, because if a poor person goes before a Kohen, it would line up with this. There's no other time. and then you're gonna say, hold on a second. According to Rabbi Meir, you have this. So there is something in between. So yeah, it's gonna get crowded, but I could have stuck the poor person over here. You're gonna say no, because for the opinion of Rabbi Hanina, this is an arbitrary time. For Rabbi Meir, it's not arbitrary because according to him, he holds like Rabbi Yosef, who it's his start time it's his sunset. He views that this is the beginning of Ben Hashmashot. So Rabbi Eliezer holds this is the beginning of Ben Hashmashot. Rabbi Meir holds this is the beginning of Ben Hashmashot. So Rabbi Hanina, you're assuming he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, and so the beginning of his Ben Hashmashot would be here. Okay, I think we can move on. Okay,
Rabbi, sorry, quick question. Did
Yeah.
Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda agree that the Kohanim go to the mikveh during Rabbi Yehuda's Ben Hashmashot?
no, they have to go during the daytime. So the question is, do they agree with the time that they're going to the mikveh? No, the answer is no. That's exactly what the discussion is. Rabbi Yehuda says, hold on, they're going during the day. And Rabbi Meir says, no, they're going during the time that you say is day. They're also going during the time that I say is day. But I will say that the day lasts into the time that you say is Ben Hashmashot. Because I don't hold like you. I hold like Rabbi Yosef, who says, really, it's day until the end of your Ben Hashmashot.
But are Kohanim allowed to go to the mikveh during Ben Hashmashot?
Okay, the answer is no. Kohanim have to go beforehand. If a Kohen waits until Ben Hashmashot, there's different levels to what you're asking. But the principle is you should go during the day. According to Rabbi Meir, you are going during the day because you're going right before Rabbi Yosef's Ben Hashmashot. Okay, let's continue with the Gemara. Okay, guys, look at this chart. I want you to ask me the next question by looking at the names. Let me just do this. This should somehow give you a little bit of a hint of what I'm trying to do here. Okay, I want you to look at the names of the first of these opinions, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Meir says the time to go to the mikveh is the time that Kohanim. The time to say Shema is the time that Kohanim go to the mikveh, which we have just defined. It's in that 13.5-minute zone. But here, in this Tosafta, it's a separate time. It's a time that regular people eat on Friday night, which we're going to say is much later. So now we have two times of Rabbi Meir that disagree with each other. And then we have also the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer that disagree with each other, which we'll do in a second. But now what we need to do is we need to now make these two brightot consistent. These different sources consistent. Let's go ahead and see it, and then we'll pause there. Okay? So I'm turning the page. Wow, Mazal Tov, everyone. This is the first time we're getting off page 2 for this shiur. We're turning on to Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. Kashya de Rabbi Meir de Rabbi Meir. I have a challenge. I have an issue that I have. Rabbi Meir is giving me two different times. In my source number 3, Rabbi Meir is saying the time regular people eat on Friday night. In source number 4, Rabbi Meir says the time the Kohanim go to the mikveh, and we have squared it away that these are different times. So how could the same rabbi give us two different times for the same act? So what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says he can't, but he did. So now let's see what the Gemara answers. Tere Tanae Alibad Rabbi Meir. It's two sources, opinions of what Rabbi Meir holds. So this is going back to Eli's question before of if it says it in a Braita, can I assume it's always right? It's not that it's right or wrong. It's that not everyone agrees that this is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. In fact, this Braita disagrees with this Braita about what the opinion of Rabbi Meir is. So again, it's Trei Tana'eh, two Tana opinions of what Rabbi Meir holds. And if you want to ask me the question of how is that possible, that two people say that Rabbi Meir said something else, all I have to do is to ask you to sit in one discussion of what Rabbi Ben Chaim said. I can tell you, people will tell me Rabbi Ben Chaim said this, Rabbi Ben Chaim said that, Rabbi Ben Chaim said this. I have someone telling me Rabbi Ben Chaim said this with the moments before Rabbi Ben Chaim very clearly said the opposite. So sometimes it's just people lying. right? I don't think anyone here is lying. Rabbi Ben Chaim said I'm allowed to do this. I'm like, okay, yes, I'm sure Rabbi Ben Chaim told you that, and there's that side. But sometimes it's very valid. Sitting in a shiur, two people hear it different ways, or different times, different people ask different questions depending on the perspective. There's different approaches. But here, what it's saying is that there's two opinions of what the opinion of Rabbi Meir is. Okay, again, you don't have to delve too much into this. But now what we're doing is we're saying that there's Rabbi Meir A, Rabbi Meir B. Rabbi Meir according to one opinion, Rabbi Meir according to another opinion. Now let's get to Rabbi Eliezer, and this I'm going to ask you guys. Hold on a second. I want to go to the top of the Gemara for a second. Okay, I want to ask you guys a question. Hopefully you're familiar with this. Okay, look at this. 2a. Okay, if I go to the very, very, very first Mishnah that we learned, when do we start reading the Shema at nighttime? You guys familiar with this? This is our Mishnah. By now, this should be your best friend. The time that the Kohanim enter to eat their Truma, ad sof ha'ashmura harishana, until the end of the first shift of the night. As we explained, it's the first Ashmura is a shift. We're going to explain what that is. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Can I ask you a question? What exactly did Rabbi Eliezer say? What are the words of Rabbi Eliezer? What is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer? So is Rabbi Eliezer commenting on the end time of Shema? Or is he commenting on the end time and the start time of Shema? So you think it's both start and end time. You think it's only the end time. So you're saying, he's giving you the entire zone from the start time to the end time, right? So you're saying the start time and the end time is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. But the next line is, Chachamim say until midnight. So what are Chachamim talking about? Only the end time. Okay, so here's the question. The question is, what do you put in quotes for Rabbi Eliezer? Do you start the quotation as maybe from the time the start time and the end time? It's all one quote. You start here and you end here, or do you say the first part of the Mishnah is asking a question? What time does Shema start? Kohanim. Period. Now let's talk about what time Shema ends. Rabbi Eliezer says the third, Chachamim say half, Rabban Gamliel says the all night. Which one is correct? Okay, so it could. Okay, so we're going to see in the Gemara how both are possible, and I'm going to give you what Rabban Chaim says. How the Vilna Gaon gives a proof. Which, if you know Rabban Chaim, you know he loves the Gra. I'll give you a proof of like which one he thinks the Gra says is more accurate based on a proof. Okay, so now, but the Gemara assumes that, like, who said? Cody, you said, or you said Ariel, that both the start time and the end time is Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Because that's what the Mishnah says. What time do you start? Kohanim until the third. That's the words of Rabbi Eliezer. So the Gemara says, Kashya de Rabbi Eliezer ad Rabbi Eliezer. I now have a contradiction between the opinions of Rabbi Eliezer. Look at the screen. Tell me, how is it possible that Rabbi Eliezer is arguing here? What are the two opinions of what we have Rabbi Eliezer saying? Right. This eating of Truma, which is Tzedek Kochavim, which is the end of the twilight, it's nightfall. And according to this Braita, Rabbi Eliezer says the start of Shabbat, which is sunset, which is the beginning of Tzedek Kochavim. Those are like widely opposite. I mean, as wide as you're going to get here. Okay? So the Gemara says, Kasha de Rabbi Eliezer, de Rabbi Eliezer. So I first asked a question about Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Meir. So what did I say? We said, okay, there's Rabbi Meir A. And I'm changing my chart on the fly. Rabbi Eliezer A, Rabbi Eliezer B. Yeah, of course you could say that. But that is a cop-out answer. Saying that, it's two opinions. Because what that's saying is like, look, there's no other choice. There's no other choice to get. They have to be different opinions. Can you say that? You can. We just did. We just did that for Rabbi Meir. But for Rabbi Eliezer, you don't have to say that. In fact, there's two ways to reconcile this. That you don't even have to. What do you think? Oh, okay. So, yeah. So now you're going to say that, because when he says the start of Shabbat, Wait, no. What do you mean? No, it's the opposite direction. He's saying the start of Shabbat, you would have to start Shabbat late for the times to be the same. Because the Kohanim can't eat at sunset. So you have to, so it's not that sunset is earlier. So if you're saying from the time that Shabbat starts, that's an earlier time. The time of the Kohanim is a later time. So let's see, the Gemara gives us two answers. Okay? Kasha de Rebbe Eliezer, you have this contradiction. So the first answer, Trei Tanaya, Rebbe Eliezer, who asked me if you could say that? You can. The Gemara does. Very good. I said there's two ways to reconcile. No. So the first answer is to say, yeah, they're different opinions. But I'm telling you, this is a lazy answer. Why? Because the Gemara doesn't like saying this if there's another option. So the Gemara is going to say, so I have another answer. If you want, I could actually reconcile the two. In the Mishnah, this is not the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. Delete. Why? Because our Mishnah says, from when do you start saying Shema? From the time the Kohanim enter to eat their Truma. Period. End. Finished. Now let's go to the end time. Ad Sof Hashmona Rishona, until the end of the first watch. That's the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. So what you could say is that in going back to the first Mishnah, as I was showing, you could say that period goes over here, and the quote of Rebbe Eliezer starts over here. The Reisha, which means the start time of Shema, is not the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. Then you don't have a machloket. So I'm gonna take your question. So what did Rabbi Chaim quote the Gra, who says what's the proof you could tell? Can you tell from any wording of our Mishnah so whether or not Rebbe Eliezer is the author of the first line or not? So here's the proof that the Gra gives. When the Mishnah says me'ematai, the me means from when. That means I'm giving you the start time. And then when you say ad, I'm giving you the end time. If the Mishnah would have said ematai, when do I say Shema? Then it would have been, okay, I need to know my entire zone. So from the start time to the end time, it's all the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. But when the first line of the Mishnah asks me'ematai, from when, Rebbe Eliezer, when you say ad, until, you're giving me an end time. Me'ematai means from when. You're not answering the question. So that's why the Gemara says how really Rebbe Eliezer is not answering that first question. Because if he were answering that first question, no one asks. He said, from when do I start saying Shema? From the time of the Kohanim until this. So no one asked you until. Okay, anyway, the Gemara gives the two answers, so you may not like that. It's not necessarily the best proof, but it is something nice. Okay, let's see if there's some questions. Yeah, go ahead, Ita.
Do we know who the Tanakh is based on?
Sorry, what do you mean Tanakama? Oh,
Says that.
okay, so that is the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua. So on that final braita that we have, it tells us that. So you're asking, okay, so if it's not Rabbi Eliezer, who is it? And you could just say that it's Rabbi Yoshua, or actually even easier, the Tosefta that we have just said it as the majority opinion. It said Chachamim. Who are Chachamim? Who are the Chachamim? It's the majority opinion. Everyone else is the minority opinion. Chachamim is the majority, the Rabbim. So who? Everyone except for the names listed. All of the Tanaim except for the ones listed is another way you could say it. But yeah, it would be from this fourth braita, it's attributed to Rabbi Yoshua. Okay, yes.
Also, why not have them going back to
Uh-huh.
time?
Well, okay. Ariel's asking a good question. So if you want to say that the first half of our Mishnah, the start time, is the Chachamim, then what you really should say is from the time that you Kohanim enter until Chatzot, Divrei Chachamim. Okay, I think it's a very good question. Two answers that I have is, number one, it could be that you want to go for the end time, you want to go in order. So you are going in order in the end time. So it's easier to remember something when you don't jump around. Okay, it's easier to remember. Remember, these Mishnayot are supposed to be something that it's the discussions is how they would occur. It's easier to remember first third, first half, whole night, as opposed to say first half, first third, whole night. It's confusing. So that could be one answer. Another thing is, I don't know. You need a Talmid Chacham to say this, and I'm not. But I don't know how many times you see in a Mishnah that Chachamim is the first opinion. Chachamim is usually a latter opinion. It's interesting. I don't know why that would be, but it's just the style of a Mishnah. I don't know why. I would have to think about that a little bit more. But so I'm just going to go with my first answer. I'm going to say like for the end time, it's easier to go in chronological order. But it is a great question, and that could be a proof that it actually is Chachamim. So it's the Gra against you, and then your different proofs. So they both work. Yes.
Do you think the author of the Mishnah sometimes puts words Mishnah away that sets up the study? Like for example, this one. Very easily could have avoided this question of Eliezer by just saying Divrei Eliezer at Sof HaShana, meaning like
Right. Okay. So you're asking a very good question. You're saying if there's some ambiguities in the Mishnayot, is it intentional or not? I think definitely sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. The way Mishnayot work in general is that anytime you have a question, you don't start with the name of the rabbi first. The first opinion, you state the opinion, and then you say Divrei, and then you say Chachamim Omrim or Rabbi Meir Omer. So this is the flow of Mishnah. So you're asking a good point. It could be that he left it ambiguous on purpose. It could be that this is just the way that it's quoted. But you're right. You could have said Rabbi Eliezer Omer. I think the clearer way to do this, if you wanted to, would say Me matai korin Shema. When do you start? Shlosh kohanim nechasin. Ad matai korin Shema. You could have asked the question again. That would have been a way to differentiate it. So was it done on purpose or not? It's a good question. I don't know necessarily, but sometimes being ambiguous is on purpose. Okay, let's see what time it is. Okay, let's keep going. Okay. Oh, excellent question that we're going to get to. Okay. Anyone think that this Mishnah was written in a clear way? Because this Mishnah, if someone, imagine someone comes to me and say, Rabbi, what time do I start saying Shema? And I say, the time the Kohanim go and eat. Shmini. What time on the clock? What time do I eat? And you say, okay, what time is the last time I say Shema? Oh, you say, okay, the time that the shift ends. What shift? What are you talking about? This is Rabbi Eliezer says the time of the first shift ending. Which is like a janitorial shift? Which shift? Who's my shift? You should ask Noah what time his shift is done. What does this mean, the shift? What is that talking about? So now the Gemara is going to ask, why are you speaking in code? So for the start time, you already know the answer. Why are we speaking in code about the start time where it said the time that Kohanim enter? The Gemara. So you learned something. Agav Urach Kamashlan. You're coming to teach you something else. That even though the Kohen is going to bring the Korban tomorrow morning, you could already start eating the Truma at night. But now we're going to ask this question about why did Rabbi Eliezer say it in the end time until the end of the first watch? What's the first watch? So you're puzzled. Do you have a question? You're right. Correct.
And there's no time. Everything, how you connect with time is through what happened normally happened at that time.
Very good. So that's one idea is that obviously you can't say 9 p.m., but there is a clearer way to say it. The saying Shema is until the end of the first watch. What's a watch? How many watches are there? You could just say until the first third of the night, or you could say until the end of the fourth hour of the night. You could be a little bit more or less ambiguous. So that's going to be the question. You're right. It's not going to ask you time on the clock, but the Gemara is going to say one more detail here. How many watches are there in the night? Yigal, are you there? How many watches are there in the night? Answer is machloket. Yeah, you're going to do it, Hila. Okay, the answer is machloket. You guys know the joke. There's one guy that's some smart aleck that goes to his rabbi and he says, Rabbi, whatever question, I studied all of the Gemara back and forth 1,000,000 times. You could ask me any question that you want, any opinion on any topic, I'm going to have an answer for you. The rabbi comes and says, okay, what time is this and that? And he says, machloket. The rabbi says, hey, he's right. Okay, what is the right time to do this or what for lulav? And he says, oh, it's machloket. He says, yeah, you're right. They have different opinions. He said, okay, what about this question about sukkah? What are you supposed to do? He says, yeah, it's a machloket. And he's like, what? Wow, he's really a Talmid Chacham. This guy really knows everything. He knows the machloket. So it's very easy just for everything just to say machloket. So how many watches or shifts are there in the night, it's a machloket. One opinion says there's 3, one opinion says there's 4. So if you have your night is 12 hours, if there are 3 watches in the night, and I can say Shema until the end of the first shift, so how many hours into the night is that? 4. If there's 3 shifts, the end of the 4th hour. If there's 4 shifts, it would be the end of the 3rd hour. So Rabbi Eliezer, why didn't you just say, you want to say until the end of the first shift, say until the end of the first shift, which is it the end of the 3rd or the end of the 4th? We don't know what you hold. So let's go ahead and see that in the Mishnah. Yes, but I'm not telling you a time on the clock. Time of the 3rd hour or 4th hour, you would the hours are variable, but there's always 12 hours in the night. Just the length of the hour is variable. So my kasavar Rabbi Eliezer, what does Rabbi Eliezer hold? If he holds that the night is 3 shifts, lema ad arba shaot. So let him very clearly say until the end of the 4th hour of the night. So how would you calculate? You see what time sunset is, you see what time sunrise is, that's your nighttime hours, split it up into 12 hours, that's how long 1 hour is. Okay, the end of the 4th hour is a 1/3 of the night. And if you hold that there's 4 shifts in the night, so if there's 4 shifts, say until the end of the 3rd hour. Be less ambiguous. Tell us a time. So le'olam kasavar shalosh misharat halayla. Okay, I know that Rabbi Eliezer holds that there's 3 shifts in the night. So if he holds the end of the first shift, and there's 3 shifts in the night, so what does that mean? How many hours? End of the 4th hour. So for argument's sake, let's say the night begins at 6 p.m. and then the night ends at 6 a.m. So that would mean until 10 p.m. Okay? But why don't you say it that way? Why do you pin it to something else? Which, by the way, what are even these shifts? So we're going to see it right now. He's coming to teach us the Ika Mishmarot Barakia. There are heavenly shifts going on. The Ika Mishmarot Bara'ah. There's also shifts going on down here on earth. What? Let me explain. Based on our tradition and what he's telling us, is that in Shamayim, there are angels that are singing to Hashem, or they're doing their service to Hashem, and they have their own shifts. They start at certain times, end at certain times. Once this time is done, this malach, you're out of here. The next malach comes in. This is how it works. Why? I don't know, but this is how it works. But if Rabbi Eliezer tells you, oh, the time of the shifts, you're going to say, hold on a second. Why would you tell me the time of Shema goes listen to the angels? How on earth would I ever know what the angels are doing? The fact that he's telling me that time means that there's a way to tell what time these shifts start and end on earth. And that's what the Gemara is telling us. The Gemara tells us that the fact that Rabbi Eliezer, what's the word? He uses these shifts. He's coming to teach you that there's ways to tell, there's markers to tell when these shifts of when one angel ends and one angel starts. Why it matters, I'll tell you soon. But I think I'm going to use Kevin's advice, by the way. I'm going to go a little bit after 9:45. If anyone has to get up and go, by all means, you're fully welcome to. But let's just do this because there's something important here. Really, there's 3 shifts in the night. By pointing to the shifts, the Ika Mishmarot Barakia, the Ika Mishmarot Bara'ah. He's telling you that there are Mishmarot down here on earth. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braita, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, the same opinion. Rabbi Eliezer tells us, Shalosh Mishmarot Halayla. We know his opinion because he's very explicit in the Braita. Ve'akol Mishmar Mishmar, at each of these moments, at the change of the shifts, Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'sho'eg Ka'ari. Hashem is sitting there roaring like a lion, which means at these moments, there's something happening in Shamayim where Hashem is upset or he's in pain, roaring like a lion in pain. Shneimar, as the Yirmiyahu says, I believe, it's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, right? Yeah. Yirmiyahu says about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, Adonai mimaro mishag. Hashem is so pained by the fact that the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed that from above, he's roaring. Umimeon kodsho yiten kolo. From his holy abode, he's giving his voice. He's sending forth his voice. Sha'og yishag al navehu. He is roaring on his home, or the destruction of his home. Okay, so it uses the word roar 3 times. Since it uses the word roar 3 times, that means that 3 shifts or 3 points in which Hashem is roaring in the night. What does this mean? I don't really know. But what I'm going to show you, what Shulchan Aruch explains to us, is that there is a concept of Are there certain points of the day that you should be focused on tefillah? I'm going to show you that in a moment. Want to see? But I'm going to keep going. I think we could cover a little bit more ground. Yeah, I'm going to cover a little bit more ground. Okay, this is pretty easy. Okay, so far, what did we say? There's 3 shifts of the night, 3 watches. This is the shifts of the malachim, and there's also a way to tell in this world. Okay, how do we know this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Eliezer quotes, we have him in a Braita, saying that 3 times of the night Hashem is roaring. Okay, the siman davar, and I'm going to give you a way to tell how you know when those moments are in this world. Mishmara rishona chamor noer. The first one is the donkey braying. This is not your. I know there's a couple guys that are braying. I'm not talking about a person here. You're talking about a real donkey. Chamor noer. There's a time in the night that you have a chamor noer. There's a lot of jokes about this, by the way. You just hope you're not on the back end of one of these jokes. Someone talking about you being chamor noer. Shniya klavim tzuakim. The second one is the time that the dogs are howling. Shlishit tinok yonek mishtei imo. The third one, a mother is nursing her child. And a woman is speaking with her husband. Okay, so how do you know when these things are happening in Shamayim? Here's how you know. If you hear the donkeys braying, and that's the first one. You hear the dogs are howling. That's the second one, in the middle of the night. You're like, ooh, like that one. And then you have the third one is when the mom is nursing the baby and the wife is talking to the husband. Okay. No, the last one is the same. Mother nursing and speaking to her husband. I guess it's all happening at the same time because once she's nursing, she's waking you up. She's not letting you see why she has to nurse. It's all happening at the same time. Okay, or you could say it's the same time, but it's like toward the back end of the night. I don't know why the times of the Gemara the babies would sleep through the night. You know, usually for us, midnight is for when the baby is waking up. But whatever. Okay, whatever. Hashem, don't ask questions. This is how it used to be. What is it? Yeah, they would go to sleep a lot earlier, so the baby sleeps until the morning, basically. Or that's true. But okay, so now here's the question. Okay, you know what? Can I? Do I have like a whiteboard or something? Yeah, I do. Okay. I want to just have a whiteboard, but you can see it on the screen. Okay. 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 Oh wow. Okay, new whiteboard. Lord, you just have white paper. I don't need anything. Okay. Okay. Here we go. We need to make a pen. Favorite color? Black. Too late. Red. Okay. So that's the start of the night. Okay. Start of night. End of night. Okay. So this is all night. So now what we're saying is that there's 3. According to him, there's 3. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. What are the 3 signs in this world for the watches that are going up in Shamayim? The 3 signs are: number 1, donkey braying; number 2, dogs howling; number 3, the baby and the husband and the wife talking. Yeah, exactly. So now, how many lines do you see on the screen? I have 3 events and I have 4 lines. That's fine. One of these lines doesn't have to have something. But then maybe 2 of these lines don't even need something. Because I know the night starts over here, and I know the night ends over here. The truth is I only need 2 markers. I need to know, okay, now who said you like black? Yes. Okay, fine. I need to know what this is, and I need to know what this is, but you're giving me 3 things. So either give me 4 or give me 2. What is 3? Where do I put them? That's going to be the question of the Gemara. Let's go ahead and see it, okay? Yeah, this good old-fashioned whiteboard helped. So, my kachashiv Rabbi Eliezer. What is Rabbi Eliezer calculating exactly? Or the signs that he's giving us, which points is he talking about? If you're giving me 3, maybe you're telling me the start times of the mishmarot. Techilat mishmara rishona. Simana lamali. You don't need to give me the start of the first one, right? So you might say that he's giving me the starts, which would be 1, 2, and 3, right? But if you want to see that, you don't need to give me the first one. That's the start of the night. That's sunset. Okay, urtahu, that's night, or it's nightfall rather. Isof mishmarot kachashiv. If you're going to talk about the ends of the times, then what's the question? I don't need the last one because I know when the end of the last one is. It's the day, right? Sof mishmara achrona lamalis simana. Why do I need a sign to know what's the end of the last one? Yemamahu, it's day. So here's what we want to say. So we're going to say, okay, you're right. So we're going to make this more narrow. Ela chashiv sof mishmara rishona, the end of the first one. Tchilat mishmara achrona, the beginning of the last one. The emsaita, the middle of the middle one. So I need 3. How do I make it work? I'll tell you. I need to put it somewhere, so let me just draw a line on the screen. This is what the first answer of the Gemara is. Look, you're right. I don't need one at the start. I don't need one at the end. I know 2 of them are going to be here. Okay, put it in the middle. That's the first answer the Gemara says. Okay? The Gemara is going to give another answer. Recite. Sorry, where is it? Second answer. Kulahu sof mishmarot kachashiv. Answer number 2. No, we're going to the end lines. Okay, this is where colors will be helpful. Yeah, let's go with green. According to our second answer, it's this one, and this one. Now, what should be your question on this? But why do I need the end of the last mishmar? I already know that. Okay, I hope everyone's following. So what does the Gemara say? Right, or over here. Kulu sof mishmarot kachashiv is talking about the end times. And if you say, no, I don't need the last one, what is it for? I'll tell you. What was your issue? You're saying, you don't need the last one. I know when it is. When it's daytime. What if you don't have a window? What if you're stuck inside, anyone goes to Israel and you have these trisim? Wow. You know what I'm talking about or no? If you haven't, you have to experience this. You put these trisim, it could be broad daylight. You think it's mamash like a Dora Mabul. You don't see anything. They have these shutters. You shut them. It becomes darker than dark. In the middle of the day, it becomes darker than nighttime. I don't know how that even happens. So imagine someone lives with these trisim, and you don't know when the day starts. He's telling you, I'm giving you a sign for you to know that it's morning time. What is that? When people start talking, when the husband starts talking to his wife, when roommates start getting up, when the baby starts waking up, you get it's morning time, okay? So lemikre kriyat shema leman deganeh bebayit afel. To read kriyat shema for someone that's living in a dark house, v'lo yada zman kriyat shema emat, and doesn't know when is the time for saying shema. Kevan the isha misaferet im bala. Once the woman is talking to a man, v'tinok yonek mishtei imo, and a baby is nursing, lekum v'dekre. It's morning time. It's time for you to get up. Meaning, if you're not sure, well, you could assume that once these conversations start happening, it's time to get up. Okay? All right. I want to just do one more thing. I know it's the very end, but there's something very important here. Okay? Very important time of shiur. Wow, I'm like swimming. Okay, so very important part of shiur. What time is the start time to say Kriyat Shema? So you're saying the time the Kohanim eat the Shema. What did you want to say? Wow, it's your first shiur tonight. Oh, look at that. He's already picked up. His answer is more accurate than yours, I have to say. But there's a 5-way opinion, right? Now I want to show you the world of halakha. With this, we're going to end the night. But I want to show you the world of halakha and how I want to know what the answer is. I want to know what's the start time of saying Shema. Let me show you something very important. First, share screen. This should be a lesson of its own, and Bezrat Hashem, maybe we could do a separate thing here. If you look at the Gemara, this is the very beginning of the Mishnah. Okay, if for someone who doesn't know how to read Hebrew, I'll walk you through this. It says Me'ematai, from when do I start reading Shema at night? And it says Misha'asha Kohanim Nichnasim, from the time that the Kohanim enter. Right over here, you see this is like a footnote, but it's not a footnote. It's a superscript. It's preceding the text, and it's a letter, a black letter that's a superscript. This letter means something. This letter means halacha. If you want to know what the halacha is, look at what I'm sourcing you here. There's something called Ein Mishpat, and if you look at in this case, it's the top left of the page. Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah. This is going to tell you how to find this in halacha. When I say halacha, let's just go for now. Let's explain Shulchan Aruch.
Wait, is that outlet there in the original text?
Correct. Yeah. Well, it's not in the flow of the Mishnah.
Way to figure out the halacha.
No, 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 no.
Is this a-
Correct. Okay. Correct. So exactly. I want to explain. This doesn't mean that it's picking the opinion. This is not like highlighting the opinion. This is telling you that if you want to know what the final halacha is for this source, you have to look it up where I'm sourcing it. It's a footnote. It's a footnote. It's giving you a source. Okay? Yeah, Shelby, if you look at the page of the Gemara, you're going to see it there. Okay? Correct. How did they reach the halacha?
Where do you get to the conclusion?
So your question is, so the Gemara doesn't always get to the conclusion. In this case, it does.
Rabbis derive halacha from somewhere.
Okay,
And we learn that.
correct. You want to like learn? Okay. So
How they derive it. Did it tell us which opinion we're going like? We have 7 opinions between the Mishnah and of different things according to people that are all within 10 minutes of each other.
right.
What's all about?
Okay.
We can look up.
What
these all
they
we
say?
have today, but that's not, and only according to that, then I'll never be able to learn Gemara and derive from the Gemara.
Well, okay.
I'm just looking up the source and seeing what the other people say.
Okay. So you're asking a very good question. You're asking, maybe this is the right way to do it. You're asking about the system of halacha or the flow of halacha. So maybe this is something that we could discuss next time. Maybe next time we'll go through it. I'll just say it very briefly now. I was actually planning on showing something else, but that's fine. Let's go through this. There are times where the Mishnah says something, and there are times where the Gemara will tell you what the final law is. See, we went through the discussion of the start time of Shema, and then the Gemara just transitioned to the end time of Shema, and we're talking about the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, and we're going to keep going into the end time of Shema. The Gemara didn't come to a conclusive opinion as to which one is the right opinion. It didn't tell us. So what do? I had 5 opinions. Which one do I hold by? So the answer is there are times that the Gemara will tell you. And when the Gemara is telling you, it's going to use a word. Does anyone know what the word is? Hilcheta. Very often the Gemara will say Hilcheta, and the Gemara is telling you this is the law. The Gemara does that. In our case, the Gemara didn't do it. So what do we have to do? The answer is you have to change your mind from the world of understanding the flow of the Gemara to entering the world of the poskim, entering the world of different opinions who are deciding what the halacha is. Now, how do they decide? There's going to have all sorts of rules. So one of the rules are that if you have a stam mishnah, which means there's 5 opinions, but only one opinion is quoted in the mishnah, one of the rules is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is telling you which one is the halacha. Right? There's 5 opinions, and in our mishnah it only tells you one. There's a rule that halacha kistam mishnah. The halacha will be like what's quoted in the mishnah. If the mishnah brings a few opinions, then you could say yachid v'rabim. If there's one opinion and there's a majority opinion and a singular opinion, halacha karabim. You would say the halacha is going to be like the majority opinion. Then there's going to be times where it's Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. There's rules. There's times where it's Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yehuda. There's rules. So there's going to be 1,000,001 rules, and there are some Gemara that actually go through it. Okay, we're not going to become experts in that right now. But that's when it's very clear, because there's rules. Sometimes there's no rule. It doesn't fall under a rule. Then what do? The answer is you need to start learning the next level past the Gemara. And this is really like a good segue for next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. We quoted the Tanaim, times of the Mishnah. Then who comes to times of the Gemara? It's called the Amoraim. Then there are some in the middle. There's Saboraim, there's Geonim, and there's Rishonim. Rishonim are now where you're going to start looking at to see how do they understand the Gemarot and how do they decide what the halakha is. So you have the Rif, see what the Rif says. You have the Rashi, see what he says. You have the Rosh, see what he says. See what the Ramban says. See what the Rambam says. See what the Rashba says. All of these different rabbis, they will tell us what they think the halakha is. Sometimes they'll give us the reason why. They'll say, because over here it says this. Sometimes they won't. And then you have other opinions. where you have like opinion of Shulchan Aruch, where he grabs all of this and he says, so this is how we're going to decide. I think this is a good topic for next week. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll get into it. Maybe we'll start off. What I was going to show you is how to look up Shulchan Aruch, but I think it's a good idea to explain what Shulchan Aruch is. So Be'ezrat Hashem, next week we'll speak a little bit about the system of halacha, a little bit more, and then we'll pick up from there. Hazak Baruch, everyone. See you next week. Yes. Sivan Davar is a quote from the Berachot. It's a quote from the Berachot. Okay, Hazak Baruch. Have a great week, everyone. Bye to the people on the Zoom. Have a good night.